In a past installment, we looked at the history of the memory card.
The microSD emerged as the clear victor, but it might soon follow MMC and Memory Stick into the great beyond, at least as far as smartphones are concerned.
These days, a microSD slot is a rare sight. Even SIM cards are starting to sweat as Apple is sticking with its eSIM-only approach that started last year. Yes, it's only in the US for now, but that seems more because of limited eSIM support by carriers globally than anything else. Apple's preference seems clear. No card slots. And yes, we know that Apple wasn't the first to go eSIM only, but it's certainly the most influential company to do so. The future now looks scary for those who love the utility of cards. Changing phones is as simple as popping out the SIM, no carrier approval needed like with eSIM, and moving a huge MP3 or FLAC collection is as easy as getting the microSD out of a card reader and into the phone. But once the future looks bright, SIM and microSD were going to join forces and be stronger together. That how idea never took off, unfortunately, if you're confused, really talking about Super SIM format. And those emerged in 2020 in China and combined the functionality of both. Physically, they were the same shape as a microSD. However, they had extra connectors that lined up or just right with the pens of a hybrid microSD SIM tray. This way, people with phones that had hybrid card trays didn't have to choose between extra storage and a second phone line. They can have both, and at a low price too, 32 gigabyte. Super SIM was CMY 100, $14 at the time. 64 gigabyte card was CMY 200. There are 128 gigabyte cards too, and the models as well. They offered sequential transfer speeds of 90 megabit reads and 60 megabits writes, not as fast as some of the best microSD cards, even in 2020, but not awful either. Of the course, once the standard was established, it would have been easy to increase storage capacity and speed over the years. Besides extending storage, these cards function as backups too and can help when transferring to a new phone. The carriers that supported the format released an app that it would store your address book, photos, apps, and other data on the card, ready to be restored on a new phone, all without touching the cloud. And as far as we can tell, there was no digital connection between the SIM portion and the microSD portion of the card. This was just a two-in-one package, and as it turns out, some enterprising folks made their own Super SIM cards years before carriers came out with an official product. And they figured out that with the right combination of cutting, sanding, and gluing, you put a SIM on the back of a microSD in a way that both are accessible to the phone. It was a delicate operation, but doable with basic tools and some courage. You can read more about the homemade Super SIM cards over on iNews. The format never really took off. If you look up Super SIM today, we'll find a lot of regular SIMs that are super because of their extended roaming coverage. There's also Huawei's NM nano memory card format, which went the other way, nano SIM shake memory cards. These were introduced with the Mate 20 series after Huawei talks Toshiba into backing the format, and they tried to get the blessing of the SD Alliance to make it a global standard. The original NN cards topped out at 256 gigabytes capacity. That hasn't changed 5 years later. The latest Mate 60 phones still support NN, but no other maker adopted it besides Honor, but this was before the split. Benchmarks of MM cards showed microSD-like performance. In 2020, Lexar introduced 64 gig by MMC1, 28 gigs, and 256 gig NM cards, costing CMY 200, CMY 300, and CMY 600 by C600.
Search in places like AliExpress shows more manufacturers have started producing NM cards since then, but there are none over 256 gigabytes.
Note that NM is a pure memory card, unlike Super SIM. That means the dual card trays still make you choose between more memory or a second phone line. That's probably not why NM never caught on, though. MicroSD cards are cheap and plentiful. However, a lot of makers prefer charging buyers $100 extra to go from 128 gigabytes to 256 gigs. You can get a 2 TB NVMe SSD for that kind of cash. 128 gig of flash memory really doesn't cost that much. So what do you think? Was Super SIM a brilliant or a dumb idea? What about NM cards? Yeah, what about NM cards?